Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Genesis Institute. I am your host, Ambassador Sheldene Byron, who will be one of your lecturers this evening. Okay, I just want to take the time to welcome you in and to officially bring you into a space where we will proceed with this first course that we entitled the dark side, the portal of ignorance. Already, I want to get right into it. I truly don't want to waste any time and be in any space where I overlap time and all of that. But I would say up front, do forgive me for the last space in terms of Tuesday night as to that little clip that you saw with Pastor Cheryl in the background. Do forgive me for that space. But at the same time, I do trust that the content based on all that was shared, based on all that was laid on your table, it would have literally stirred and begin to pull your mind into a different level of ascension, a different level of intelligence, and that space where you had opportunity to go back and to listen intently and to do some revision, some research on your own. Okay. I pray that you would have taken some time out and do all of that so that you could be in the space where you can catch up with us today. This evening, I have my special guest with me in the person of Dr. Joshua D. Mills. He's no stranger to this table. And coming out from the space where, he practically would have pulled my lens into the whole concept to the revelatory realm a little greater than where I was in the beginning. And that all took place when I joined his institute, Ascend Institute. That space when I was in England at that point and joining his classroom at the midnight hour into 4 a.m. in the morning. My goodness, Jesus, Lord help us all. You get what I'm saying? Y'all don't want to know what that experience was like. These classes would have been on Monday and Thursdays, and I normally have mines on Tuesday and Thursdays. Already. So coming out of that space and being able to, have that experience for 6 months stretched me to the core. You hear me? I just like you see my background here with all these books in the back. It brought me to a place where my brain had to be extended in spaces of ascension and transcendency, in spaces where the infinity tense of myself had to truly be exercised, even as I'm teaching you now. So I'm going to bring him up. And as we get into this evening, welcome to the
Hey,
Genesis
hey, hey.
Comments. Come on.
I am here. I am here. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Wonderful.
Good to have you in the midst of us. Take some time to greet the people and then let's go.
Hey, everybody. Listen, tag somebody. Get them on here. This is going to be one for the record books. You don't want to miss it. Anytime you get Ambassador Sheldene and myself, it's going to be a headache somewhere. It's gonna be a headache somewhere, but no, I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for inviting me as well. I found it as a pleasure, as always, to come and share and just be able to like glean from each other and really just chew on things together. You know, we're able to grow when we're able to have conversation. As you're having conversation, you're able to expand in your thinking, your perceptions, and you're hearing language that you never heard before. Something that will cause you to think. One moment, one conversation, one word can open you up to a whole nother realm of thinking. You know, another paradigm. So I always find it fascinating. I love being able to come and be a part of it. And we're talking some good stuff tonight, so I'm excited, man.
Well, to be truthful, it's always an honor to be in the same space with you. To have that collision in mind and in the, intimacy of God's presence. That space right there where people often wonder, how is it that we are so revelatory in all that we do? But I think I was saying to Apostle Cheryl some morning ago, devotional period. Normally, I don't expose my secrets a lot. And if you're not within close proximity of my mindset or my spirit, I really don't allow, myself to be echoed. Because a lot of times it's easy, and I'll say this up front before we even proceed. A lot of
Right.
times people just love to know you have an anointing, you have a calling, you have some sense of gifting or some sense of ability. to be occupied in the very service of the kingdom. And once that is exposed, you become that milking facilitation.
Right.
You get what I'm
Right.
saying? So I'm very mindful and very guarded. This is why I often do teachings like this in forums like this. Hear me well. Because as I was explaining on Tuesday night, when I was given that introductory scope to what we were doing based on our subject area, the dark side, the portal of ignorance, and dealing with the subtitles, darkness, which is no color coded. We're going to step into the second phase of this tonight. That leads into I'm trying to remember the thought for tonight. The concept of ignorance, and we move into the illusions of fear on to next week. Already?
All
I'm
right.
saying this because I am, if you know me and you know me well, Joshua, by now, that I will set a platform or build a plethora of thoughts and then expand and expose at the same time. But I'm saying this because a lot of times we think people who are within the kingdom, people who are within the body of Christ, and this is from a universal context, mind you, I'm not just talking from the local branch or the regional or international. A lot of times we see people sitting in the pew and we assume that they are learned or that they are discipled in knowledge that speaks through theological concepts, foundational elements, that speaks through those theological doctrines as we have ascribed out of the belly or the womb of scholars, those who sit and study. You get what I'm saying? And this is where it aches me, hence the reason why I pull in this format so that you don't bring across knowledge to this degree ignorantly at the same time. You thinking that everybody know, but yet not having that ability to teach so that people could learn or come into the knowledge or to greater depth and understanding of. Because majority, a matter of fact, the highest percentage of literacy in the church today is unbelievable. Preachers preach on a pulpit just to preach, but they don't teach with the capacity to educate. I'm going to say that again.
That
Give
was
you in the
that's good.
background. And those of you who listen, they hear me well. A lot of times you go to church Sunday, well, let me say from Monday to Sunday, and you get all the airy, fluffy concepts of what preaching assumes or what it delivers. But at the same time, when it comes to the hardcore, the meat, and to bring us into substantial, aspects of the solidity of our faith, that which grounds us in the knowing of, not just based on having knowledge to say that I have learned Christ by a head concept, in terms of just having information that is stored, but learning Christ to the extent that within the very knowledge you have, it now begins to filter through the applicational realm of your soul, your life. You get what I'm saying? You have knowledge to the point that if anybody stops you and asks you why you believe X, Y, or Z, you have an answer to it. And this is the part that frustrates me, why we only preach, but don't get into the realm of teaching that educates the average saint on a pew. Sit down. It's not just about having Bible study, Josh.
Definitely isn't that.
You
I think a lot. Of,
understand? Sorry?
I'm gonna say I think a lot of times we think that just reading, being able to read, and I said this the other day, reading and memorizing does not mean that you're studied or you're astute. And a lot of times we think because that's all we think study is. That's what we've been taught study was. It's hammering information, memorizing it, and so we focus so much on memory and think that that's learning, and that's not the case. You may have a great memory, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you learn anything or that you are intimate with the information enough to actually execute or even evolve the information. Right? You can't evolve anything if you have not necessarily been involved with it. So just memorizing something from one standpoint is not the same thing, and it shouldn't be looked at as or heard as as this person is astute, this person is very well studied, they understand. When we deal with study, it more so deal with the lifestyle, the practice,
Come on.
right? It deals within the space of practice a certain lifestyle, and then what comes with the practice, what comes with the practicality of practical steps, what happens is you have experience, and experience is an amazing opportunity to actually be intimate with the information
Come on.
of what's happening versus just knowing it or head knowledge of it, right? Having the heart knowledge of that situation because you're intimately involved in the circumstance or whatever the positioning is that taught you something that you didn't have access to. So I've heard a lot of people say, well, I don't want to have to experience, like, let me just learn from this person, watch this person, I just learn from their mistakes. But certain things only come with experience. Certain things only come
Come
with you
on.
living things out and experiencing certain things. And I think a lot of times we traditionally are afraid of experiencing certain things that we look at as taboo or that someone else is going through that we look at it as judged as something negative that we don't want to go through that. I don't never want to experience that. I don't never want to. Well, the only way to understand patience is you got to go through some things so you can be patient, right? So it's like, well, I don't want to have to go through that just to get patience. Well, we'll pay attention so you can be patient, you know what I mean? So, but it's still within the same space of it. The perfecting of a thing or the maturing of a thing comes through experience.
Come on.
It comes through walking. So we go from knowledge to understanding, from understanding to wisdom, right? So it's that same principle. So what I look at as information, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's good to be able to receive information and to be able to retain information, to memorize it. But I'd rather be intimate enough to know a thing more so than to be able to quote a thing, right? I could tell somebody, they could read a book and say, hey, this is how you drive, right? You get in the car, you sit down, you put your seatbelt on, you get in there, you wiggle your feet, you put your keys in there, turn it on. And they reading that, it sounds great. It sounds like, oh, I know how to do it. I know how to do it. But when you get in that car, if you've never been inside of a car before and you get inside the car, you don't know how to drive. You don't know the responsibility. You don't know what it takes to be self-aware of the drivers around you and all that. That doesn't mean you know how to drive just because you read a manual that taught you how to drive. You have to experience it. So I think that's what we have traditionally we have forsaken. We've forsaken the grace that comes from experience because of fear, right? We're so afraid of going through certain things or going through pain or going to experiencing certain things that seem as though it's out or off-putting from who we want to be or how we think we're supposed to be, that we've forsaken the glory that comes from discovery in just experiencing life, innate being connected with yourself and in these moments to receive. So I think that this whole, even the whole concept of we talking about the dark side going into the fear and everything you're doing right now, I know it's strategic. I know it's just funny watching it because I'm sitting here talking about it, but it's the same concept, right? It's the same thing. You have to experience life. And so I've been saying here recently, stay in the wonder. I'm saying that on purpose. Stay in the wonder, stay in the space of discovery. And not be so hard on yourself, like, oh, I gotta get it right. No, you don't. You gotta learn. That's what you gotta do. You gotta do is learn, not get it right, get it wrong. And I think we get caught up in that, right or wrong, left and right, all that stuff. And I'm probably picking some little nuggets with you. I know it. I know you. But we get so caught up in that right and wrong thing, that consciousness, that sin consciousness, that fear concept, and that we forget to live. We forget how to just live, and we forsake some of the most greatest experiences that will come from our experience that can help other people glean from and grow if they were able to hear our story. But we don't have a story to tell because we're too afraid to experience it. All right, go ahead. I'm passing it. Tag.
No, that's good. I mean, we're talking tonight, so that's fine. Because I love to build premise in terms of what we delve into. I mean, especially areas where persons are not aware or have that level of knowledge to really delve into the conversation as deeply as we can. Because you don't want to put people in any space where they second guess or they are in spaces where, even though you will find elements of ignorance, ignorance. You don't want to leave them where light cannot have that effect to enlighten their minds and to bring their minds into a space where they can feel the appreciation or the participation to the conversation. Because a lot of times we just get up and we lecture, but yet don't open up that forum where persons could have the opportunity even to question. Even, I mean, sometimes you may ask stupid questions, and that's fine. You get what I'm saying? They can only act from the level of where they have learned or where they know, where they have experience, where they have gotten that type of knowledge that befits where they are. You get what I'm saying? And I'm building this Torah because of the space where we're going into the concept of ignorance. All of this holds merit because it is not just about bringing you into a study that, oh, this is foreign, I've never heard this teaching before. Oh,
Right.
this is not the unusual to me. I never heard my pastor or whoever teach this. But at the same time, as we introduce you into this space, into this audience, we want to make sure that you are comfortable enough to sit in this classroom with us. Not being afraid that even until you have a question, please do post it in the comment box, by the way. You get what I'm saying? Even until you are triggered with anything, you can always inbox us individually, whatever. You get what I'm saying? I mean, our messenger inbox is always open. Thank you very much. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, because we would love to sit down. Because if you don't know, both the Genesis Institute and the Ascent Institute are one. We piggyback each other's brain
Absolutely.
cells, so to speak. And I love being in space like this with Dr. Mills because of the fact that I remember someone said to us when I joined your class earlier o'clock, why does our brain click alike? Why do we have to think so high? But it's not a matter of high, it's the capacity to which your spirit is able to ascend. And mind you, let me say this. Let's take this footnote right here. You have the ability to ascend just as we do. It's
Yeah.
all contingent on the relationship you have with Jesus Christ. Don't be fooled in terms of, and let me say this very clear so you'll understand. I'm not going to bash your pastor and all the leaders that you have around you. That's not my goal. But my aim here is to help you to understand that individually within the context of your relationship, you have the ability upon the premise of communion, upon that space of intimacy in the presence of God to ascend as high as. No man can tell you how far to go but the Spirit of God alone. Are you get what I'm saying? So even in the course of study, this is why I encourage people, even until you sit in a room like this, don't do what normal people do, average people do. If you are going to be studious, if you're going to be disciplined, if you're going to come into spaces where you have to expand, are you get what I'm saying? And when I say expand, understand that this does not exempt or exclude maturation. And you get what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Because if you want to become, I'm going to help you here. When Jesus brought the 12 disciples together, he handpicked them specifically. But what did Jesus do with the 12? He sit them down and begin to allow their lives to come into the discipline of what they were taught. That's how knowledge became so experimental to them. Because as they were taught, they had to do.
Right.
Oh, Jesus, right there. Right there, Joshua, I can go off on a handle.
No, I
The
get
reason
it.
why I'm saying this is because it's so easy to only be taught. Lord Jesus, let me right there. It's easy for me to tell you, oh, this is X, Y, Z. But at the same time, to bring you into the doing or the application of X, Y, Z, it takes your participation. It includes your ability to function, your ability to reason. It includes your intellectual capacity and
Right.
property to function. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Right.
And I hate just listen. I'm gonna be straight up, Joshua. I'm tired of the Bible studies on this one. I think we need to get into spaces where we can sit down in group formats and begin to thrust things out on the table. As I was saying to Apostle Sharon earlier, I do not want to go back to the formal church. Hear me well, and don't go away saying Ambassador said anything wrong. Quote me the way I said it. I do
Right.
not want to go back to the formal ways of church. Why? Because if I look at the disciples of Jesus and how Jesus schooled the disciples, bring them into discipline, He sat down in a space, open spaces, where they were free to ask questions, where they were free to dialogue, where they were free to converse, not being afraid to empty their mindsets, even in spaces where they were ignorant, they didn't know how, and even until they do what he said, he allowed them to come back to receive correction, spaces where that mentoring effect can begin to groom and cultivate their gifts instead of, oh, I'm going to bash you instead. I'm going to take up the hammer and hammer you because you're not getting it. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? We
Yep.
don't take time to aid people in the massaging of knowledge. Because every person sitting at that table in the congregation on the Sunday morning ain't going to get it the same way, learn the same way. And I'm saying this because we have a culture in the church today where the literacy that exists is high. It's unbelievable to know, even in the common average local church, when you do statistical studies, that you have 30% literacy, 60% illiteracy. Are you get what I'm saying? Why? Because people are not being sat down in spaces where thought concepts are stripped. I don't care how much you've learned theology. If you can't take those theological thoughts, those doctrinal elements, and begin to sit and bring them to the table where the average person could begin to understand, that does not tell me you eliminate ignorance.
Right.
One
Right.
thing about Paul I love, he always said to the Galatians, I wish for you not to be what?
Ignorant.
Ignorant.
That's right.
Why? Because in his disposition, when it came to knowledge and allowing knowledge to be released or be dispensed on the table, they had the privilege, just like the Bereans. Whatever he taught, whatever he preached, they went back home, did studies, and come back. Paul, but you said this.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you said it, this not functioning in our culture here. And Paul had to do what? Take his time and break it back down.
Yeah.
Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why am I saying this? Because we have alluded to the concept of darkness, even as I explained on Tuesday, and the whole idea behind this from the perspective of God's insight. Josh, the way we have articulated and brought forward the concept of darkness from God's sight is through the lens of definitions we've given that befits a type of thought or idea too. But
Right.
yet still, when you compare how we see darkness, when you compare how we understood darkness, it is far-fetched from the originality, from the
Right.
state of God intellect to ours. What
That's
we
right.
assume it to be is not what is in God's mind.
That's right.
Are you getting what I'm saying?
Right. You're talking about right now the sovereign mind of God
Come
versus
on.
the finite state of humanity in our thinking. You know, we are creatures of habit, and we're creatures that's subjected to the environments that we submit ourselves to. So the more that we're surrounding with a certain level of thought or level of thinking or linguistics, jargon, the environment of conversation, we're limited within that space and that perspective, right? It's not until we get into other environments that our lenses can change, that we're able to see from a different perspective, which gives us a greater vantage point to understand things. So when you start talking about the definition of darkness and what darkness is as it relates to God, as it relates to creation, from the beginning, we see in Genesis, we see God created darkness. We see that there was, in the midst of nothingness comes something, and he's in the midst of this darkness, hovering over the face of the waters in the deep. And then he speaks out of the darkness, and light comes out of it from his voice from the darkness. So the negative connotation, and that's the thing we got to understand too about words and linguistics. There are connotations with certain terminology, And even within that terminology, there's a certain emotion that's invoked with certain people with those terminologies as well. So when you begin to look at certain concepts of language and where we are and how we've arrived to where we are, a lot of it comes from the lack of understanding, of the lack of linguistics to be able to really articulate or translate what was really being stated. And if you are looking from a lens of fear, everything is going to be filtered through that fear. So it's going to be a negative connotation behind it, or a negative construct, and however you see it. So one of the things I teach, and you've heard me share, is God created darkness, and it was good. It was perfectly dark, right? It was perfectly dark. It was perfect within the space of it. But for those who are alienated and disbelieving, nothing is pure. So there's a purity in the darkness. Titus 1:15 states, to those who are pure, all things are pure. So the purity of the darkness it was perfectly dark, but not within the lens of how we think darkness. Because most of us, when we think about darkness, we think about nothingness. We think like an endlessness of nothingness. And the sad part about it, that's neither negative nor positive. It's just your perception and how you see it. Because this realm of nothingness means that is open and like a womb for you to plant something there. So what would you plant in that moment? What are you going to create in those moments of darkness? What are you going to declare? What are you going to say? What are you going to fathom in those moments, right? What can you come up with, right? It's a great opportunity for you to create something out of nothing, right? The law of intention states that everything that's needed in the moment for it to manifest, that you need, that you desire, is already in the moment. It's just your ability to pay attention to it, or give life to it, or give credence to it, right? So as we focus, and I've said this before, what we focus on, that's what we give our power to. So if you're in the space of a negative connotation of darkness, then your power is going to go there, and everything in your life is going to create a scenario for darkness to be that for you.
Because you give the illumination to the thought.
You give the illumination to it. You give breath to it. Right.
That's right. You give that power for it to have that expanse, that space
Absolutely.
where it begins to formulate. Because as your mind conceives, perceives, the imaginary realm within you goes to work, and it begins to fit the picture based
That's
on
right.
what you are creating. You get what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right.
I went to a place there for a second. Hold
I
on.
know you had
This is
left.
all
You
I
left the
come
room.
on.
You left the room.
The truth is, as you said, and within the context of science and metaphysics here, the whole idea to darkness does not, as I said on Tuesday, does not connote anything in the mind of God that speaks to evil. That
Right.
speaks to
Right.
anything that draws our attention into illusions of fear, really. And I'll deal with that next week. Okay, y'all stay tuned for that last part.
Yeah.
Jesus help us. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That space that now have to bring definition out. In the mind of God, darkness is darkness. It does not have a color, it does not have a scheme, it does not have, as you said, it is like nothing in the mind of God. The
But
way
that
we
but that
understand the definition thereof is when we allude
yeah.
that space of our imagination and it marries into
Right.
Jesus right there. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
When it marries into, because you got to understand from theological foundations, theological realms of school of thoughts, etc., how we build constructed theology, how we allow doctrinal spaces to be carved. If you know anything back in the days in the 12th century, the 13th century, coming up to the 16th century, when the spaces of illumination began to take place and how school of thoughts were built. If you understand anything about these historical concepts, whenever you begin to study theology in depthly, you've got to understand that from the root concept, which is the Aramaic, mind you, let me break this down here. The Bible was never first written in Hebrew and Greek, mind you. We've learned that. Listen, I went to Bible school, and they tell me the Bible in part is just Hebrew. The Old Testament, yes, Josh, we went to Bible school, right? The Old Testament is Hebrew, and the New Testament is Greek. You know what I
Right.
got to understand that that's just a lie is years after. because the originality of Christ's language, and if you understand about Eastern Orthodox
That's right.
living and style and culture and history, they were all Arabic
That's right.
oriented.
That's right.
So
Semitic
every other
people.
language that was, as I said Tuesday, the Greek, the Hebrew, and the Latin were birthed out of the Arabic culture.
Right.
Are you going to break down into particles, into constructs of thoughts?
Exactly.
That these are theological understanding and frameworks. Are you getting what I'm saying? So if you go back even into the translation, the different versions of the Bible we have, you will find the whole verbatim, the language, the linguistical nature, the spaces of communication differs. Are you getting what I'm saying? Why am I saying this? Because a lot of times you don't get this level of teaching in your local church.
Right.
Are
Right.
you know what I'm saying? But here
Yeah.
we are in spaces where these things based on definition, when it comes to, this is the part I'm going to hammer on purpose. When it comes to definition, is another story.
Right.
Because once I put my imaginary realm into a space to begin to think of a thing, I begin to give birthing to that thought. And I can create a definition based on how I perceive or have that interaction or intimacy with that term. And,
That's
you know,
it.
and I can pull it and tell you this is what darkness is. And this is how the whole concept of the illusion to fear began. Because remember, Second Timothy 1:7, we like to quote it well. God did not give us a spirit of fear. But how did we end up having troubles through the same concepts and the definitions of thought based on theological structures and foundations and doctrines and dogma? Let me say two dogmas.
And dogma.
You
Dogma.
know what I'm saying? That
Dogma.
we build and educate people in to the point that even from a religious standpoint, they can't see no other lens. They can't perceive nothing. Just one second. Well, that thing to go. That thing go off and go off crazy. Okay. All right. We can't perceive through no other lens. Are you getting me?
Right.
And until you learn to recognize that you have the power of thought, let me say it and I'll say it again. Because in the mind of God, when it comes to darkness, there is nothing there that signifies a color code. This is why I said it's calling the dark side the portal of ignorance. Because
Yeah.
we are on the side of ignorance when it comes to understanding the mind of God through the realm of darkness. Because all we were taught is a sensitivity to an illusion that begins to build fear and give the imagery based on definitions. Mind you, that tells me darkness is evil. But yet, when you look at coming down through the scriptures, Genesis 1 to 5, then God did what? He separated the light from the night. It's called one day, called what?
One like. That's right.
If God's intention was to allow darkness to permeate evil in the earth, why would we have, I'm going to provoke your idea tonight. Why would we have spaces where even the darkness at the night, in its organic state, hear me well, does not in any way contradict the universe and how it functions, does not in any way contradict the cosmos, does not in any way contradict the atmospherical realm? How is it that if the darkness God creates and it has the opportunity to function in the night, in its stillness, in itself, in its place, how is it that if we say it is evil, that it does not contradict the laws of the universe? Jesus Christ, I
I
need help.
mean,
How does it not contradict the stars, the moon? How does it not contradict the sun? How does it not contradict the very space that we call night? How does it not contradict? Because if it is so much evil, and by virtue of God being the creator of darkness, mind you, if you don't believe me, go read Isaiah 47, 11. He created
Colossians.
both realms. Are you got darkness and evil? A matter of fact, Psalms 18:11 says it best that surrounding God is darkness, a cloud of darkness over his throne. So if darkness was outside of the universal law of operation, mind you, and out of the science of operation, how then would we end up with having matter, metaphysics?
Dark matter.
You get what I'm saying? How then would we end up with universal laws that tells me that there is a need for darkness, even inside of you? How
Right.
did we end up with a space where we in ourselves, in our human element of existence, have a space to a dark side just the same? But yet, this is what we say is darkness, the sin.
Right. You know,
Just because we are born in a nature and we have quote unquote inherited gene skull sin, we label this as darkness. But is it in the eyes of God darkness at all?
right. You said something that was quite interesting earlier. I thought it was, for some reason, this word in particular stood out to me, and you said definition. And for some reason, when you said that, for some reason, I saw the word finite in definition, definitive, definite, and it still deals within this concept. We got a long way to go.
Oh yeah.
Ego is infiltrating so many different things, man. It's crazy. But it's the ego of man to want to be right, right? It's like it's that thing in us that makes us, we gotta be right. We gotta be right. But it's only right within the concept of what we have as a environment of people have agreed upon, that's right. And I was just thinking to myself, that's interesting because the mind of God is very subjective,
Come on.
depending on who's talking, right? Depending on who's actually expressing themselves and speaking. The mind of God is very subjective. It's all in theory. All of it's theory. It's crazy. But to talk like this is scary for people because, like, man, I can't believe he said that. But the truth of the matter is it's all based upon the individual, because based upon how you determine and how you you introspectively bring into that message or that inspiration that's coming to you, right? And I've been teaching here recently that the inspiration that we call God speaking to us, inspiration can come in a moment, but inspiration is always filtered by your experience. So until you have had other experience to change that space, your inspiration or the innovation that's coming is going to be filtered by your experience. And so I was just thinking about, even down to the terminology evil, right? We're talking about evil. You know, when I look at the word evil, I see the word lived. Live. I see live backwards, right? So people are like, what? I see this because what we vilify as completely evil is what has come from the outskirts of what other people have lived.
Come on.
And we say that's overt evil based upon the experience of what they did and how it made us feel or how it affected the whole community. So all this language, I know I just went somewhere completely left. But all this language, all these concepts, all these different thought forms that have been established to try to, I guess, identify and validate, right, within within the space of my need to be validated, right? Because of the whole concept, it's all there, but because I don't see myself in it, I struggle with it, right? I struggle with it, and I'm so fearful of experience that anything that looks different from what culturally I have been raised to believe is God, then I literally vilify it or demonize it so that they'll feel bad and I won't never go there, be tempted to go there. But my thought process about all this, and I'm saying, out of all the stuff I just said, out of everything I just said, in this darkness, there's nothingness.
Come on.
But in this nothingness is everything. And everything is in the nothingness. God is an oxymoron. He's beginning and end, first and last, light and darkness. And as he is, so are we. Even the connection of us connected to God is an oxymoron. Yeah, I know it sounds. I'm all in
Come on
another
now.
place right now. But the concept of it is God is divine, and here we are, what, human, right? But yet, and still, in the same token, the whole concept is oneness with God. So we are divine, and He is. Let me pull back from that one, because he is subjected to my reality. He's subjected to within the space of my thinking, how I perceive a thing, how I look at it. So when we look at all this stuff that we're fighting, we're going against, even down to people talking about they were praying against this, and I'm binding this devil up and demons, and I'm looking at all these different things, and I was like, well, if you think about it, if there's a demon, the question is why is there a demon, right? So why is there a demon? What's the purpose of a demon? I'm still waiting for that one. But well, they say the torment us to make sure that we do so, because God wants us. Oh, no. I take it back. Because the devil is fighting for our souls, and he wants our souls as much as God wants. And I struggle with these alternate realities, because Colossians 1:16 states that everything that was made by His hand. Will be thrones, dominions, powers, principalities. Everything was made by the hand of God, and it consists because of His hand. So I struggle within these concepts that are contradictory to what we know about the sovereignty of the Creator, and then it's contradictory to the sovereignty of what we're supposed to be as the creation, being connected to the Creator. So it's all this language, all this stuff, and it's a whole bunch of mess that's going on, and all of it is stemming from us gotta be right. We want to be right. We want to make sure we make it to heaven, nobody else make it to heaven, because I'm right and you wrong, and you going to hell, and I'm gonna prove you going to hell because you ain't living like I'm living, and God loves me, so He shows up for me, but He don't show up for you, and all this stuff and all that, all that is ego. All of it is ego, and it literally fights to protect our ignorance. That's all it does. Is literally keeping us in a space where we're constantly poking at and focusing on the differences. And as long as we're in that space, we will never be able to come together like this, to sit down and we go on a journey together in the midst of the darkness to see what we're supposed to bring out of the darkness into the light. Right? That's a whole conversation. That's a whole dialogue. That's a whole breaking of bread. That's a whole breaking of covenant, right? Communing with one another, is being able to dive into one another in our most sacred spaces, to be able to share that with each other, to come one in confidence together, to experience that, and then come out of it together with something that neither one of us knew we had access to. And it's like, wow, we both discovering this. This is amazing. And that's what a marriage is supposed to look like too. I don't know why I just threw that out there, but anyway, that's what connection is supposed to be, right? Connection is two spirits, two souls, us connecting on that space. So the more that we press into the fullness of what revelation is, of as things are unfolding, because we're forever unfolding. It's forever unveiling, right? There's more that's being unveiled. In all that we do in life, there's always another unveiling. There's always another way to see it. There's a whole other perspective. There's always another way to see another glory, another revealing, right? So as long as we're staying open in that space, we're able to flow within a space, but it all stems and it's established first from the foundation of self-love, connection, me being in love, God is love, God being in me, being connected and being rooted and grounded in love, that I now can open up to you, and you can open up to me, and we can have dialogues like this and say, okay, yo, it's a lot going on, man. Like, what's happening? What's going? And then we can talk about it and be like, ooh, that looks crazy over there, man. That's crazy over there. But I'm still speaking life to it, right? I'm not going to speak death over it. I'm not going to speak something negativity to it because I don't understand it because it's different. Because that's what was done to us. That's what was done for many years. That's what we've done in the church, right? For many years, we've demonized so many different things because we don't understand it, or it was taboo, or it wasn't what our forefathers left for us, as though they knew all that would happen in the 21st century, but they left this behind for us. They were prepared for that. They knew exactly what we were going to go through. They knew that we were going to be dealing with mental warfare for systematically for hundreds of years, and they were going to genderfy. They were going. I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox for a second right here, but the greatest issue with America is the greed of men. Right now, America is one of the we have so much debt to date because we didn't think it necessary to not charge interest to our own citizens. I know that sounds crazy, and it's like, where's he going with this, and how'd they go that left field? My point that I'm making is right now we have so much that's happening right now in this world, not because there's not enough, but because some saw it was not only are you gonna have to pay me back what you owe me, but you gotta pay me extra for me having to wait. I know that's so simple and that seems like so crazy, but it has made a systematic effect on all of humanity. One simple concept: interest. Simple concept. Making people pay longer than they're supposed to, so they're indebted, and now this country runs off of slave trade or debt, excuse me, and so many other countries are doing the same thing. Why am I bringing this up? Because it's these little demarcations that we're not paying attention to, that we're trying to apply principles from the first century church to this century, and it's not working. And we're struggling with it because it's like, wait a minute. When God said he'll supply all my needs according to riches and glory, but he didn't tell you that you're going to be dealing with evil men with interest, and they go. So now you're dealing with, okay, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on? What's that? Now I got to rethink everything that I know, because the truth of the matter is, even though they prepared us for certain things, the truth of the matter is there's so much more that's going on in this world, because as the world goes, as the time goes on, we're evolving. We're changing. We're shifting. So we got to leave from the ignorance enter into the space of relevance, right? Or revelation of the darkness, of the light, of the nothingness, everything that's going on, everything, all these things, right? So understanding this place of us navigating. It is necessary for us to do what the scripture says. It says, learn from the children of the world, for they're wicked, but they're wiser than you. Why are they wiser? Because they know how the system goes, because they put the system together. So you got to learn how to do it. You got to flow from that space. So it's like, wait a minute. What am I supposed to learn from them? How am I supposed to learn everything? Everything. Pay attention.
I'm just in there, right, Josh, and I'll come back to something based on theology here.
Okay.
Both myself, Apostle, and I went to see in Yarman and animated movies. Mind you, I'm a very big clown and a big kid inside to some degree, right? Because I grew up watching a whole lot of animated cartoons and all these things. And we decided we were going to see Kung Fu Panda 4.
Don't tell me nothing about that movie. I got to see it. Don't you tell me nothing. You better not say nothing about Kung Fu Panda 4. If I hear anything about Kung Fu Panda 4, it's going to be a problem.
I'm interested right here, right now. But at the end of the movie was the most critical part. Where I said to her, when Pooh had to go back to reopen the spirit realm by using the whole concept of chi.
Yeah.
Because
don't tell me nothing else.
Was the warrior, the chosen one.
Yes.
Because of somebody breaching the protocol and pulling all the specialized martial arts.
Yes.
Artists, and taking all their power to become this gigantic god. You know what I'm saying? And the funny part of it, I said to her, do you just understand what just happened? I wish they could have rewind that part. I'm like, whoa! I said, wait, 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 slow down. When we were coming home, we sat down outside. And I said to her, did you really catch the end of that movie at all?
Yeah.
I said, I bring it to simplicity for you and for those who are here. This is why we relate to the text that says, men rather darkness than light. And as I said on Tuesday night, you've got to understand the balancing of thought in that statement. Because if we think by a virtue of the King James Version, put it in
Yep.
that way, and think that is in the accuracy of language, it is an error.
It is error.
What scripture really connotes here is that man rather to go into the darkness or the abyss of himself,
Yep.
into the hidden treasuries of himself, into the spaces where he cannot be uncovered or discovered. That does not in itself say that deportment to him is evil.
That's
It's
right.
just that he stays where light does not have the ability to reflect or to reveal who he truly is.
Yeah.
And in the essence of who he is, he does not know how to unfold himself in this
Right.
space,
Right.
except that he needs the understanding of the darkness of God in that space. Ooh,
How
Jesus, what a
how many different concepts like that, phrases
exactly.
that we've ran with and made a whole doctrine off of, that has
And we
established such a
believe that it is the darkness of evil and depression and suffering. That's not what that
that's
is.
not what it means.
Because the fact that both contrasts are drawn out in the one verse, darkness and light, he has that dual dimension to himself, but he gives one preference more than the other.
Right. Right.
Are you know what I'm saying? I'm saying to her in this, do you understand? It's the same thing why I don't understand why a lot of us who sit down and watch movies like The Matrix Revolution, the trilogy, and mind you, part 4 is coming out soon. For those of you who have Matrix
Oh,
Revolution, stay
Matrix 4
tuned.
coming out.
Matrix
I'm
4 is
about to check
supposed
it
to be
out.
in preparation to be out. So when you
Okay.
think the trilogy was it, that was alright.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
I got some movies to watch.
Listen to me carefully. How is it that those we deem to be quote unquote sinners, and we still dealing with the whole concept of ignorance, and I'm going back to systematic theology on this, so you will hear me clearly and strip this down for you guys. How is it, Joshua, that those minds have the ability to go into what we call the darkness or into the third eye, into the stages of illumination, into the pyramid degrees of heaven and earth, amen. But yet they could come back with innovative concepts through their creative ability and bring out areas of thought from the divine
Right.
that is so far ahead and has transcended ahead. If you don't believe me, ask anyone in the church across the globe who created technology. Oh, I could shut the mic down right there. Who created theology? Let me say it this way. Who created technology and who created theology? I'm gonna bust your brains because listen, we can't stay in a place where ignorance befits the game of the in our minds anymore. And I'm going straight back to systematic theology on that note. How is it that those who are within the technological realm of science can hit the galaxies in wavelengths of the stratosphere, the aerosphere, the hemisphere, the circumference of the universe to the degree that they can pool simple energy, mind you, and create concepts where we are being served through satellite systems all over the globe, where we can have what? The same level, as you said, connections. In so many different and through so many different portals that gives us the ability to be in communication. Why are they able to tap the communication system of the communication realm of heaven to such a degree that not even the church could even stand in the understanding of? And we'll say that those who are in creation like this, we call them evil, but yet
Right.
they have the audacity to sit down and use their devices
Right. In they services,
The television one I
the
believe.
whole
We
cameras and
know the
everything,
telephone
lights.
one. Okay, let's be real. But this is why I'm going back to systematic theology. So that you would get out of the portal of ignorance, period. Systematic theology was not created by fools in the first place. It is called systematic theology on purpose because systems of thoughts were developed and were created to give men leverage to their belief. Oh God, help me Jesus tonight. Help us, Holy Ghost. Are you getting what I'm saying?
That's
So
right.
every belief that was constructed and we deemed to be doctrinal, that carried definitions to degrees and allegories to the point that these systems of thoughts, as they were engineered in the mind of man, begin to build that religious concept of gathering and pulling people to the degree where that thought can be carried out or married through connection and connectivity, through relationship. Do you understand why we have systematic theology to the point that every denomination on the earth holds doctrines that are different, concepts that are different, thoughts that are different. We hold spaces of thought so bad. That's why we have the denominations versus kingdom. We have denominations versus church. You get what I'm saying? Why you have the Protestants, the Baptists, the Hindus? Why we listen? You gotta understand. Even from the 16th century, when the age of civilization and enlightenment, especially, let me say for those of you who don't know really, go do some studies and will help you. Through the system of Catholicism in the first place, that's why both the British and the US, the Europeans are so colonized by Catholicism so bad,
Right.
mind you, if you didn't know. They were, let me tell you something. I said it this in Ascent Institute some time ago. If you want to find some of the richest documents that speaks to theology and the systems of the world, try going to the Vatican for a visit.
Listen, the Vatican is loaded.
Are you getting what I'm saying?
It's loaded. It's loaded.
And I'm saying this because those of us who have no sight into spaces of thoughts and teachings like this, we are left in a loop of ignorance so bad. And I'm
That's
not
right.
saying ignorance, mind you, ignorance in itself is a neutral and a
That's
neutral
right.
concept
Right. Right.
until you acknowledge to it.
Right.
It does not say you are dumb, you are silly, you are inferior. That's not what ignorance is.
That's right.
Ignorance is not just the fact that you are unlearned or unschooled. Ignorance means that you are in a preserved state. Lord Jesus
That's
Christ.
right. That's right.
Because you have not birthed anything to a thought or coming to the enlightenment of anyone else's experience or thought that was formulated through information or data. That does not in any way suggest to you, even from a subjective point of view, that you are a fool.
That's right.
It's just that you are behind, like the concept of darkness, you are behind a realm that you are not aware of, that is
That's right.
unknown to you.
That's
And this
right.
is why a lot of us are afraid of learning higher, learning deeper, because we don't know what is behind the curtain. But until you give the lens of ignorance that space where, listen, I am not going to stay in this anymore.
That's right.
You begin to understand, hello, I can learn differently.
Right.
And I can expose my mind into dimensions of consciousness where I don't have to stay outside of the mind of God or the mind of myself.
Right.
Systematic theology was not developed only to give us a facing of religion. It looked that way. And I remember when I was doing systematic theology in college. Josh, hello. The
Mm-hmm.
amount of religions I had to pass through.
Yeah.
And when you did contemporary theology, because you had systematic theology and then you have contemporary theology, when you begin to have the contrast between both realms of thoughts, sometimes I get sick and I turn on the book on the bed. Like, what the heck y'all doing? Y'all confusing my brain. Especially
Right.
if you take a thought like the one we love to hammer a lot, sin, the sin consciousness nature. If we take that alone, you will have so many variables to that
Mm-hmm.
one word sin in every denomination. It's not funny. The
Yeah.
Protestant view, the Catholic view, the Baptist view, hello, the Pentecostal view, every single denomination, the Seventh-day Adventists have a different concept based on their constitution of faith.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean that the originality of that term is extended to the end of its revelation?
Right.
Otherwise, we in the 21st century will not be in spaces where we have to surpass the 16th century revelation, the 15th century revelation, the 19th. Hello? Revelation is not a one dimensional thing.
Right.
And this is what we have infiltrated throughout, believing that every concept, this is why we have problems with the church. When the foundational elements of theology have to be quaked, we don't like it because, oh no, you're troubling the sacred text.
Mm.
You get what I'm saying? And this is why we stay ignorant to this degree because we don't want to expose ourselves into greater depths of learning.
That's right.
This is why it's darkness to us and ignorance look alike.
Mm. That
Because
was
the
a
way we
statement.
have connoted the idea to darkness shifts us into spaces where it holds us in bonds of what? Ignorance, to the point where we fear that if we walk out in the night, somebody's going to kill us automatically. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's spaces of illusions.
Mm-hmm.
You get
Right.
what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yep. It's
So
amazing.
breaking this down is so important that you don't walk away thinking the concept of ignorance is just about, oh yeah, I'm some fool over here who don't know. No, ignorance goes beyond that. Because there are spaces in you where you will need to be ignorant for a time or for a season. How are you going to handle that?
Mm-hmm.
Because even if God tells you something now through prophecy, Josh, it does not mean you have the full revelation of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
The ignorance there in its purity will have to preserve you until you come into the experimental spaces or the experience for that reality to have effect. That does
Right.
not mean you are ignorant by bliss or being in an osmosis position.
Hmm.
You are in an ignorant space because that space protects, it preserves, it keeps you in its stead.
Right. Right.
That does
Right.
not in any way create. Sometimes ignorance is there because it does not wishes to create infiltration of illusions. Jesus the Christ. You get what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Mm.
So much so that it's better for you to be ignorant sometimes.
That's right.
Okay, Josh.
No, that's
I'm like,
good.
oh, my whole
You
brain
just
is
did it. You did a Selah moment right there.
still out.
You got to breathe on that. You got to let it
Okay.
breathe. You got to let it breathe.
Yeah, let it breathe for a second because I wrong y'all tonight.
You got to let it breathe. I
Breathe right
think
there.
I think the just the bottom line of it is this is you start dealing with the dark side port of ignorance. It's everything's about your perception, right? Your vantage point, how you view it, and what you say. And I know I spend a lot of time saying this. I especially when I do come on, I put so much emphasis on that about what do you think about you. How do you view it? I know what I'm saying about it, but what do you view it as? How do you see it? Because no matter what I say to you or what someone speaks over you, if you have a core belief about a thing, it will not change until you change it, right? You have to have that thought for them to go through that process of changing. So how do I change from the space of being fear minded or fear mongled within ignorance to a place of discovery, of excitement, of what can come? Right? How do I shift that energy from, or transmutate that energy from being one of negative of fear to one that is excited about what is to come, the unknown thing, right? How do I shift in that space? And that requires dedication, but it's also requiring intentional work, right? Putting yourself around or surrounding yourself within the thinking of life, right? With everything, right? Even in the most taboo situations, finding a concept of life or something that is worth speaking life to is an important practice to begin to start receiving a different outcome practically in your life, to start seeing things now open. We got so much fear in us. You talked about earlier about how technology has advanced, but theology has been the same. For many years. And it's so true. It's so true. Like, I don't, and I've said this too. Everything else in this world and society see it needful to evolve and to change, to grow, except for the church. The church is the only organism or organization that I know that's in operation in the world right now that think that it's okay without change and with staying to the original pillars of what was done. Heck, even the foundation of a building after so many years have to go through a refoundation, right? They gotta have to go in and make sure it's still structurally sound, So, it's interesting where we are in this particular juncture as humanity and how we're still navigating but still have been affected by this thing. Is truly the head will bruise his heel and the heel will bruise his head. It's truly that. And the thing about it is, about that prophecy, a lot of people think that it was talking about Satan, the accuser of the brethren, but the only accuser of the brethren I see is religion. I wish I had some water right now. I ain't got no water to drink. I did drink. Take a sip for me. Right, take a sip for me. The only accuser of the brethren, the only serpentine mind that I'm really seeing in operation is religion.
Come on.
And religion in itself literally means to rebind. That's what the etymology of religion means. It means to legion means to bind and of course, do again. So when we look at this concept of what is going on in this world, the major wars, because of religion, because of belief systems, because we don't know how to have tolerance, we don't know how to connect with other people, we don't know how to tap in. How spooky can I get? Can I get real spooky? We don't know how to be a base and be abound. We don't know how to tap into our divine feminine, right? Which is one of tolerance that we learn. Learning when the balance of how to be strong and how to be meek at the same time. We don't practice these things, and then ego has been, oh my God, ego is crazy, even when we say ego is crazy, there's a balance in that, because there's a need for ego at times, so you got to know the balance of all things. There is no way around this maturing in balance. There's no way around it. Like, you got to ascend to a place of maturity, of balance of self, knowing who you are, authentically light and authentically darkness, the balance of that. Who do I choose to be today? Am I going to be the dark Josh, or am I going to be the light Josh? Like, what am I going to walk in today? Am I going to do a little mixture, a little swirl of both of them? Like, what am I doing today? But remember, darkness is not sin. Darkness is not evil. Darkness is not negative. So me being in that, am I going to be creative, or am I going to be absolute today? Am I going to be factorial? Am I going to be in faith, or am I going to be in facts, right? Logic, right? Am I going to be in creativity? That's all we're speaking of right now. So, it's that concept that we have to shift within our thinking, and a lot of that will begin, and it will happen when we're willing to face head on the error and call it error. Call it wrong. Now, this might have been good for them back then, but it's not helpful for me today. Like, I have to be willing to not be like, oh, trying to say, my mama and them did, they did. I can't be in the space where I'm so afraid to stand up and see it necessary to let things go. I talked about this the other day, this week actually, and I said briefly on Monday night, I said we must dismantle the idols of our fathers.
Come on.
And I was talking about this, and they were like, what are you saying? And I'm saying this idolatry. Idolatry doesn't necessarily deal within the space just of a person, place, or thing, but even an idea. Right? Person, place, or thing, it's a noun, right? Anything, person, place, or thing, idea. Anything that we place in that space. And I talked about briefly about how we place monuments to remember certain things, but the monument became an idol. It became an idolatrous place that we went back to worship, and we stayed there, and we never migrated from there. We never built upon that. We never went nowhere beyond that space. And so we as a people, God's people, and when I say God's people against popular belief, I'm not just talking about those who say Jesus' name. I'm talking about all of humanity. We are evolving. And the church, if we want to be able to be relevant, right, we're going to have to evolve too. We're going to have to evolve in our approach and how we perceive things, how we declare things, how we speak things. We're going to have to evolve in how we treat people, how we treat ourselves, how we think of ourselves, how we think about other people. We're going to have to evolve. If we don't evolve, I'm sad to say we're going to come into some rough days. Can I say something just truly prophetically? The reality of it is the church is about to face some hard days.
It is.
And the reality of it is yeah, everybody keeps talking about it's the end time. God is coming back. God's coming. You're right. It is the end times. It's the end of that system. It's the end of the way you've been doing it this way, the way of thinking this way, flowing this way. And the crazy part about it, I'm going to tell you how crazy it is. You all know that at one point in time, the word of the Lord and Christianity was one of the highest kind of things that everybody wanted to be a Christian. Everybody wanted to be a believer. Right. And the word of the pastor, the word of the leader was so at high esteem. Do y'all know today, to this date, like it has dwindled? Like talking about prophetic voice, might being a prophet and all this other stuff. Like you would be afraid. They coming like, who coming? No, I ain't going to see them because they gonna see me. I ain't going. Now it's like, ooh, they got magic. Let me go look at it. There's no value there no more. It's like, ooh, it's a new trick or something. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why this is because people are waking up. They are waking up. They're waking up all over the world, in our communities all around us, and they're placing a demand on, if you are, then be. But if you're not, then shut up. Right? Because I don't have time to hear it. Right? And you trying to, because back in the day, it was cool. What we used to do back in the day, we talking about leading somebody to God. We like, we would teach them fear first to make them believe in God. You had to believe in the devil before you could believe in God. You know? And now we like, what? No, I'm not going to sit here and listen to your fear tactics so I can believe. I got to believe in your fears so I can believe in your God. What? I'm good on that. So we're having to change the way we even present the message and how we do the things that we do. So until we shift, we're going to see a mass exodus. We're going to keep seeing stuff fall apart. We're going to still see stuff happening. And y'all going to still have them religious people talking about, they going to hell and they leaving church left and right. And they said broad is the path that leads to destruction. But it's going to be narrow, and we narrow. We over here narrow. Y'all broad too, and y'all thinking. Let me tell you how broad you are. It's a whole lot of y'all that's about to miss it. You're about to miss it. You're about to miss it. You're about to miss it, right? So you had to repeat myself. I feel like I was, Perry, stop it. But we just gotta wake up, man. That's just I think that's just the bottom line. It's
the truth. We've got to wake up because as you often say, I'll add to it before I take away.
Yeah, I'll add more before I take anything away from it. I will add more. If you want more, I got more. I'm just pulling back for right now. I'm just letting you know. Like the river runs deep over here, right? Trust me, the waters are running. They're running. But it's time for us to make a conscious decision to be willing to no longer close their mouths, and that's why I love what's happening right now. Especially 2024. You know, those of you who watch, I know y'all be acting all super holy and stuff. Y'all be watching TV and stuff and everything, and y'all know y'all saved and stuff. But Cat Williams, when he did his
Oh
interview,
boy.
he did something in the world, and against proper belief, I believe God used Cat Williams, like against what y'all may think, to expose things that were going on because he started a chain action of events that start taking place. And then we start hearing, and then y'all know what else started happening? We start seeing about the undercover stuff that started happening. Everybody start coming out. Stuff is.
Exactly.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this time that we're in because things are being exposed, right? And it's need to be exposed because one thing is this is we've made the man of God or the woman of God untouchable. And
Mm-hmm.
so this exposure is keeping them humble, but it's also causing the people to understand that they're just as human as we are, right? And
Right.
they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? We're still maturing. We're still growing. So I love that portion. The other thing is to keep them humble and say, you know what? Hey man, I can be exposed at any moment. You know what I mean? Like, let me get my life together. Let me get it together. You know. But that's just the bottom line. So we're in one of the greatest times. I know it seemed like a lot of chaos and it seemed like a lot of craziness that's going on, but understand the scripture does say that where sin abounds, grace abounds the greater, right? And grace is not just God's unmerited favor, but grace is, however, an endowment of knowledge, information, understanding, revelation, ability to accomplish a goal, a call, right? So there's a grace that has been released to us, even if it's just more revelation, teaching, understanding, even if it's just these podcasts, these things that we're doing now. This is opening us up to something, another level of thought that we've never been introduced to, we've never experienced before, and it's causing us to see things that we didn't see before and cause us to walk in places that we didn't go before. So, I'm just, I'm excited. I really am excited. I'm excited.
I'm hearing the joy juice effect behind of your
Yes.
because I know your elementary in your but I'll sit this and I don't intend to stay long to this before and probably go to a wrap up for this with us. The portal of ignorance has to be broken, Josh.
Hmm.
And I'm saying this from the onset of where we've idolized theological thoughts, or as we quote unquote says, doctrines, to the point where we have so much references to dogmas and ideologies that does not befit the entirety of Revelation. Let's be real. While I do agree that our forefathers, our descendants, had moments of revelation and had to go through cycles where that revelation had to meet and merit their generation. It does not say that we have to build sticks and stones on those spaces
Hmm.
that cause us to believe that it's better to hold on to an idolatry system rather than to give revelation its place or its purpose to permeate and to take us into a section above that. This is one thing, even now as I'm doing this ontology, leadership, in generational blueprint, this is one aspect to it that I brought out. That even though our forefathers had deposits of revelation because of their relationship with Christ, even though they sit down and study in the midnight hour, you get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And was brought into eclipse and spaces of transcendency in the spirit. It does not mean that what they wrote, based on theory, mind
Hmm.
you, uh-huh. Are you getting what I mean? That's
Yeah.
acknowledged. Yes, I got you.
Yes. Yes.
All right. I think I'm wrapping up. I
I,
think
I I caught it.
so hence the reason why I'm wrapping up this way.
Yes.
Because we so believe that based on all these doctrines we've had, that they are so fixed for every generation. I heard Jesus right there. They are not. Lest we lose evolution, lest we lose creativity. lest we lose the idea of the mind of God, which is infinitive in its operation. Are you getting what I'm saying? If
Yes.
we sit down and we think we could only see sin or hair from one dimension, we can see, grace from one dimension. All these spaces of doctrines we've had and we've debated for generations and centuries. If you think that in this 21st century now, we're in 2024, that there are minds that are ignorant like that was of those years ago, you've got to be kidding me.
That's
And this
right.
is why our theological foundations are having breaking patterns, why the church is being emptied, because the way you think about the sinner or the average man out there who is not being schooled. Remember, technology has advanced so much that I can go on AI chat and ask for a download. Oh God, y'all not hearing me tonight. And I will be given information from God knows how long that begins to facilitate what you claim to be doctrinal, correctness to keep me in check in holiness. Are you getting what I'm saying? And I'm
Right.
saying that because we have information to our team
Right.
that shall now merit us to begin to evolve greater than. Because if the average man outside could sit down and study to the point that when you sit down outside with them and you start challenging them about God and the whole idea to how they should live, and they are batting you down and making you look small, what does that tell you? Are you getting
Somebody's
what I'm saying?
emotion.
The average mindset of a 5-year-old Josh compared to 20 years ago is not the same
It's not the
anymore.
same.
And
These
what
kids
the
are
state
geniuses
of
coming out the
enlightenment,
womb.
come on, the state of enlightenment that we're in now does not suggest we should sit down and be ignorant anymore. Because if ignorance in its purest sense, as I said earlier, is a preservative, then by virtue of where we are and what we are exposed to greater than Moses did, mind you, we should not in any way be in any space where ignorance makes us look like fool, but because of the preservative ingredients that the hidden treasuries in this space in the mind of God and what it befits us to have the revelation through. We should have the accessibility to such portals to unveil beyond technology, but we are afraid because somebody tell our minds long ago that my mind can't be like the mind of God, and I don't have a conscious state that should express me in the consciousness of God. Foolishness and buffoonery.
That's good.
Because why did Philippines have to put it to the context as Paul said it, that I should have a mind like Christ? Why would I be in a state where I can think and be in the mind of Christ as to who he is, and so will I be? That's craziness.
Right.
That's how far the ignorant system, as I said, the systematic theology,
Yeah.
the spaces where the systems inside, if you
Yeah.
didn't know it was called systematic theology because it has systematic thoughts and trends and patterns, narrations inside there that befits particular groups because of the learning concept that was revealed on the level to revelation that was unveiled. Hello, go back and study again. Are you getting what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
why we have cliques. That's why we have cults. That's why we have particular cultures. Why? Because the belief system that was created out of these spaces begin to provoke
Yeah.
and create reactions. Why? Because the mind then having to conceive. Let me tell you something. The worst state of a man is not how he can think and why he can think. It's not how he can think and why he can think. Think. Hear me well. The worst state of a man is when he does not know his own thought. When he doesn't have any intimacy with that thought. When he doesn't have any identity to that thought at all.
That's
That's
right.
when ignorance can override and cause you to be under the illusions of men, and where fear now takes its grip. Because what fear does through ignorance And the illusions it creates. Hello, this is next week. I'm sorry, I'm going ahead. You know what I'm saying? The illusions it creates now begin to thwart your perceptions, your view, the imagery that God gave you. Yes, back in Genesis 1, you were created in what? In the image and in the likeness of Him. When that side of you is thwarted, any man can take your will and spin it, as we call it. This is how the ark of the spirit came into existence. Because they can take your will and twist and turn it to their advantage. And mind you, let me help you understand something here. This is where the church in itself, I'm not talking about the church Jesus built, I'm talking about the systematic churches we have, the institutionalized church we like, the one that we have called organization, not organization. And you get what I'm saying? I'm wrapping up
Yeah.
right away. And I'm shutting down for tonight. Because
Yes.
I ain't offended anymore. Are you
That's
getting
good.
me?
She said, I'm not going to say it anymore.
I'm not going any further. Y'all bring up the busted. Because y'all don't come up and say, I sound heretic. No, I'm not. And I'm not being braggadocious or acting on ego. Because it hurts and it pains when you can see members of the body in deficits where ignorance holds them to point where man can dictate their will. Man can have illusional concepts being built to the space where we call it witchcraft, and this is where we have all the warfare. Yeah, the spiritual warfare that you are like to battle and say, it's a demon. But you don't see that when Paul wrote and tell you that there are strongholds that are created in your imagination, these are thought systems that are built to the degree that you can think for yourself. And we wonder why slavery is still, existing today, why the commercialism of slavery is so overridden and populated to degrees that we don't even see the system of slavery existing right in our eyeball. Because another man robbed us of thinking for himself.
Wow.
And I'm
Wow.
saying that because this is how deep the concept to ignorance will go when you give man just one touch in that space rather than having the hand of God enabling it through preservation. Because in that space when God preserves your ignorance, bro, there are treasuries and discoveries, and the wealth
Right.
and inks and deposits in that space.
That's right.
That's why I call it the dark side. Because that dark side inside of you, when you are alone in yourself in there, when you come into the volume of yourself, that's a whole other dimension of discovery to who
That's
you
right.
truly are. Are you getting what I'm saying? I trust this with each and every one of you tonight. I'm going to shut down right here because I'm not going no further. Because I think
Yeah.
I've blown my caps off enough. My steps and documents have done enough damage for the evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you
Yes,
getting what I'm
ma'am.
saying? And I
Yes.
know you have to take your exit from us. But at the same
Yes.
time, I really want to thank you for being here this evening. Trust those who were in the audience received. Well, if you did not, please, this is why you can press. You see how technology is? You can press the little button.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know what I'm saying? Share it with a friend, share it with someone else if you so freely will do. And by all means, we thank you for being with us this evening. This has been the Genesis Institute for schools for this month of March 2024, Dark Side. The portal of ignorance. Thank you. And we are saying bye bye and good
Bye
night
bye.
until next week. Bye bye, everybody.